You know, our whole lives are built on stories. But have you ever stopped to wonder, what if the most important stories, the ones that literally define who we are, aren't actually ours? What if we're living inside these invisible structures, these myths that hold us captive, without even knowing who wrote them? Yeah, let's get into that.
Just let that sink in for a second. Think about the stories you tell yourself. You know the ones that explain your limits, your pain. Are those stories truly yours? Or are they just echoes from a past you've started to treat like some kind of sacred, unchangeable truth?
And this brings us right to the heart of it all, an archetype called the Magical Knightmare. Now, we're not talking about fairy tales here. This is a raw, living force that shapes how we become who we are. It's that powerful place where truth and imagination meet, where the story of our very identity is woven. But an archetype like this doesn't just exist in a vacuum. Nope, it's actually part of a much larger, unseen system inside of us, a kind of foundational architecture that gives our entire inner world its shape and its structure. I want you to imagine an energetic skeleton inside of you, a framework that literally holds your stories. This system is made up of 12 core pieces, or ribs, and together they form a cage around the heart. Now, a cage can protect, right? But it can also confine. And each one of these ribs holds a different piece of your lived experience. And today, we're zeroing in right here, on the 9th rib. This is the seat of myth itself. It's the domain where the magical nightmare rules over all the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves. So how does this actually play out in real life? Well, within this 9th rib, there's this constant pull, this core tension. It all comes down to a fundamental choice that defines our relationship with our own story. Are you a prisoner of your narrative, or are you its sovereign author? This lays it all out so clearly. On one side, you have fracture. That's the state of brokenness. It's when we're just reciting these old stories written by our past pain. Our voice, it's just an echo. But then look at the other side, cohesion. This is where we take our power back. We rewrite our narrative from a place of total sovereignty. Our voice stops being an echo and becomes the origin. We choose the meaning. But this is so much more than some abstract theory. This mythic framework is forged in the fire of real, actual, lived experience. It has a human origin, often a single moment where a story is first written not by us, but for us. So where does a myth that powerful, one that can define us for years and years, actually come from? Well, it almost always starts in a moment that seems really small, almost insignificant at the time. It can begin in a quiet, innocent moment of vulnerability. A jewelry box holding a little secret, a childhood fantasy, maybe a picture cut from a newspaper, that first little spark of desire. It's a totally private, magical world. And then, the wound. A single sentence, usually born from someone else's fear, just shatters that private world. And right there, a limiting belief is born. A story is written for you, and it says, you are not worthy of your own fantasy. You can't even desire what has just been deemed impossible for you. And this right here, is the birth of a fractured myth. It's the exact moment our fantasy is wounded and our imagination is forced to completely recalibrate. It stops dreaming, and instead, it learns how to survive inside the new, much smaller story it's just been handed. But here's the good news. We are not destined to live inside that fractured narrative forever. There is absolutely a path from being an echo to becoming an origin. A way to move from fracture to cohesion. And the goal isn't to just erase the old story or pretend that wound never happened, it's to achieve something we call convergence. This is the sacred act of uniting that past story with your present-day sovereignty. It's what allows you to live a life that's aligned with the myth you consciously choose for yourself. So let's just recap the core journey of the Magical Nightmare. It's about moving from that fractured state, just reciting narratives that were handed to us by pain, to the cohesion state. That's where we consciously rewrite our narrative from a place of deep internal authority. We stop being the character, and we finally become the author. Because, in the end, the stories we believe become the reality we inhabit. Our personal myth becomes the actual map we use to navigate life. So the question isn't if you have a myth. We all do. The question is, who is holding the pen?